Extreme loss and starting over. What do you do when your life as you once knew it is just completely over and then you have to totally start over from scratch and rebuild? This is not the video that I was planning on filming today, but I can't get this out of my mind. What's happening right now as I'm filming this with the fires in California and just seeing all of these people like have their life just poof disappear in front of their eyes and now they're left to start completely over. I can't help but think about this topic of like extreme loss and rebuilding your life. And so I just wanted to talk about that today because although I have not personally experienced losing everything in a fire, I have experienced losing almost everything except clothes on my back, pretty much, and having to rebuild my entire life. So there's a lot I can say on this subject because it has been what I have been living for like the past almost 4 years. I feel like I've been able to go through the most difficult chapter of my life without putting my happiness and inner peace on hold. So I want to share the main things that really helped me go through that whole transition of life in hopes that if you are experiencing extreme loss, having to rebuild your life completely from scratch, that this will help you. So here's what happened. I was living in Costa Rica at the time, found myself in an abusive marriage, and basically had to flee for my safety with my daughter. And so it was the extreme of thinking that I was going to be living the rest of my life in Costa Rica to nope, now I'm fleeing for safety back to the US to start my life over. And it was literally with a suitcase of our clothes and my daughter's stroller. My daughter was 15 months at the time. So change of country, loss of my income source, loss of my marriage. Although I was escaping that, it was still a loss. Like, to go through a divorce is a huge loss. Loss of the family that I thought I was going to have. I had to leave behind my dog. I had to leave behind my cat. I know what it feels like to just be like, what just happened? Like, is this my reality now? I thought I was going to like be living my life like this, and now it's going in a completely different direction, and I don't even know where to start or what to do. I don't know how to handle all the emotions that are coming up, because here's the thing. And I think really this is like the first step, is acknowledging your reality and validating it for yourself. So like, even for me to record this video today, I was a little bit hesitant, to be honest, because I'm like, okay, well, people could be like, oh, well, you didn't go through a fire and have your whole house and your whole community burn down. You know, what do you know about loss and starting over? And it's like, I was kind of like discounting my experience. And then I was like, no, wait a second. I've been through extreme loss. I know what it feels like to lose your life as you currently know it and have to start completely over. Like, loss is loss. That is the point. So it's like acknowledging your situation for what it is and validating it for yourself. You don't need to compare it to anybody else's. It's not helpful when you're like, well, this person has it so much worse. I should really be grateful. And then it's like, then you make yourself feel bad for feeling bad about how hard of a time you're having. And it's like, loss is loss. Grief is grief. Emotions are emotions. Basically, human pain and suffering is all the same. We're all human beings. And so no matter the cause of your extreme situation, the effect is still the same. So I see it as like two things. On one hand, you're dealing with the extreme emotions of the entire thing. There's grief and all the things that come with that, like the sadness, the anger, the shock, the disbelief, the bargaining, like, well, if I would have just done this, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. And so it's handling that whole thing. And then also like the logistical side of like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? Like, where am I going to live? How am I going to make money? What are my new dreams? Like, what am I even building? Like, I remember when within the first few weeks that I had moved back to the US, my best friend asked me, it was a summer day, we were in her backyard drinking LaCroix, and I remember her asking me like, so where do you see yourself in a year from now? It was like the first time in my life that I did not know how to answer that question. I was like, I have no idea. Like, I literally have no idea. I couldn't even think or envision my future. I couldn't see it. And when I was asking myself, like, what do I even want? Like, where do I want to live? What do I want to do for work now? Like, what do I want what's my new dream? I had no answer. And that was a really uncomfortable feeling. You think when you're gonna go through a divorce that the hardest part is gonna be losing the relationship? For me, because I was leaving an abusive person, it wasn't the loss of the relationship. I was like, oh, I can finally breathe being away from him. It was the loss of basically my dreams. I had gone through the entire process of becoming a citizen of Costa Rica because I really thought I was going to be like living the rest of my life there. We had been building a life and we had a business together. We had a house. Like, I really wanted to have a second child. I had like this whole entire future in my mind that we were working towards. And then to suddenly be like, oh, wait, actually, no, that's totally not going to happen now. Now I'm back in Wisconsin. Totally different scenery, totally different country. Although I grew up here, I hadn't lived here in like 8 years. So it was reacclimating, and being like, okay, so I guess I'm gonna be living in Wisconsin now. I was so shocked. Like, I was just like, is this my new reality? Like, now I'm gonna be building a life in Wisconsin? Is this where I really wanna be? Like, what? I didn't even know. So validating, just start with like validating your struggle. Like, everybody's hard is different, but a struggle is a struggle. Pain is pain. And so just acknowledging like, this sucks. I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. I feel stressed out. I'm having panic attacks. Like, just acknowledging that and not comparing, not feeling like, well, somebody else has it worse than me, so I'm not allowed to feel this way. It's like, forget that. Like, your pain and your struggle is real, and just acknowledge that. And if you can't validate it for yourself, let me be the one to validate it for you. Whatever pain or struggle that you're going through right now is valid. Like, if you're suffering, if you're having emotions that are extremely hard to deal with, those emotions are valid. I validate you. I'm validating your experience. The second tip I have is that it's actually a question. I kept asking myself, what is my next right step? What is my next right step? That's all I have to focus on, is like the next thing. Because rebuilding your life doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a week. It doesn't happen in a month, and it doesn't even happen in a year. Like, I've been rebuilding my life from starting over for nearly 4 years. And although I do feel like, wow, like I've really accomplished a lot in this amount of time, I still have moments where I grieve like the loss of my cat and my dog. Losing pets is so hard. Like, it is so hard. And like, my cat, for example, he was from Wisconsin. He was my cat since I was like 19 years old. I got him as a kitten. A friend of a friend like rescued him. He was found in a dirt hole, and I adopted him, and I moved him to Costa Rica with me. He was with me for like 17 years. I can even cry now. See, just what I'm saying. Like, the emotions, they come unexpectedly sometimes. It's like, when I think about how I had to leave him behind in order to save myself and my daughter, like, that was so hard. It was like I had to grieve the loss of him while he was still alive. So that was crazy, because I knew that the day that I was leaving the house to get on the plane with my daughter to come back here, I knew I was saying goodbye. Same thing with my dog. When I left, our dog was like 7 years old, and he went everywhere with us. And so to have a dog like that be part of your life for 7 years, every single day, like do everything with you, and then have to say goodbye, that was another huge loss. Yeah, so if whatever life change you're going through right now, if that includes the loss of a pet or pets, I feel you. That is really hard. You're losing part of your family. It's valid. What was helpful for me in all of this, like just acknowledging what I was going through was hard, validating my own pain and suffering and struggle. And I think like another way to kind of put that into words is like, it was helpful for me to surrender to just what was happening. And like, okay, this is my reality right now. It's going to be extremely emotional. It's going to be extremely hard. This is probably the hardest chapter of my life. Just surrendering to the fact that it was going to be hard. I was going to be grieving for a while. I didn't know how long. I was going to be adapting to suddenly becoming a single mom, which was, again, never in my life plan. That was a whole adjustment in and of itself. And so, yeah, it was helpful for me to just kind of just, surrender to it. Like, this is hard. I can do this. I can do hard things. I can get through hard things. And also making that choice up front. Like, I'm not going to let this steal my joy or inner peace. Like, I know that I can access those things at any time I want to. And I think my background in yoga, I've been practicing yoga since I've been 14 years old. I did my yoga teacher training. So I've done a lot of really deep spiritual work. And so I think having that foundation was really helpful because I really relied on my yoga practice and my ability to be the observer, detach myself from my ego and just experience, take a step back and be like, okay, this is the human experience that Brooke is having right now. Interesting. Just kind of detaching and just going through it. I wasn't trying to put on a front or pretend I was better than I really was. That was the other thing too, is I had lived out of the country for so long and then I was back in my hometown. I came back to be by my family and friends. I needed a support system through this time. And so I was running into people around town that I hadn't seen since high school. And, was getting the same question over and over. Don't you live in Costa Rica? What are you doing here? Are you visiting your family? I was bombarded with running into people asking me the same thing over and over. I was yep, getting divorced, starting over, single mom now. My life's a total disaster. Don't really know what I'm doing, just taking it one day at a time. I just saying that and totally owning it was really helpful. It actually opened me up to receive a lot of love and support from people. That leads me to my next point, asking for and accepting help. I guess through this experience, that was a skill that I had to develop, swallowing my pride and being okay asking for help and being willing to accept help when it was offered to me, and not giving myself the extra emotional toll of feeling bad that I was in a position that I needed help. But instead just being really grateful that I have such an amazing family and friends support system that I could get emotional again. They all really rallied around me and helped me with what I needed help with, and I accepted it. Even when it was not easy to do, or even when it felt like a hit to my ego. It was such a humbling experience because it was for the first 5 months that I was back, I didn't have my own home. I was bouncing around between 3 places, mostly my mom's house, also my best friend's house, and my dad's house. And going from having a whole life that I had built in Costa Rica, my own business, my own house, with my husband at the time, all that stuff, to now having nothing except clothes and a stroller, having no place to live, having no source of income, having no idea what I was even doing, and having to stay at other people's houses. It was such a blow to my ego. It really was. It was really humbling. And who kept popping into my mind was Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you know of her, but she's a huge inspiration. And I heard her speaking one time about how she was a single mom and changing her son's diapers, and she was, I don't know if she was staying in a basement of her friend's house or something. I think she was. It was a similar sort of situation. And she said, I had to be willing to be inconvenienced. And so that's another motto I would say as a tip that was really helpful for me to remind myself of, is okay, this sucks. This isn't ideal right now, but I'm willing to be inconvenienced to start over. Yeah, it's not ideal that I'm bouncing around between 3 different houses. At times I felt like I was living out of my car and just okay, where are my daughter and I gonna sleep tonight? It was really uncomfortable. It was packing up the formula, packing up the diapers, the wipes, the whole entire thing. There's so much that comes with moving a baby around. So it was just the whole logistics of that. It was really inconvenient. It was really uncomfortable, but it was what I had to do to just survive day to day. Another thing was I really focused on the present moment. So although it was really quite a struggle to suddenly be a single mom 24/7 of a 1-year-old, the silver lining to that was and you'll know this if you're a parent, when you have a baby that has needs, it's the rest of the world shuts off and you're just I gotta feed my baby. I got to change my baby's diaper. Like there's nothing that pulls you more into the moment than like having to attend the needs in the moment of a baby. So I was constantly being pulled into the present moment because of being a mom, which I'm so grateful for. I had already told myself, like, I'm not gonna let this huge drastic life change like affect my happiness or affect my ability to experience the joys of, you know, being a mom and having a new daughter and all of this stuff. And so it was like I made that choice ahead of time, and I was very intentional to be very present with her. And so it was like every time I was feeding her, I was like, I get to feed her right now. I get to change her diaper. I get to cuddle with her, and I get to play with her and hear her laugh. And so like if you're going through extreme change right now, finding those moments through many times throughout the day to just like ground yourself and be in the moment. I know something that I learned in my yoga teacher training too was like to close your eyes and just be like, am I okay right now? Like, is everything okay right now? Usually the answer is yes. So it was like, okay, today I have a place to sleep. We have enough to eat. Like, our basic needs are covered. Like, we are safe and we're okay. That's all that matters for today. And then if I could, asking myself, what was the next right step? So like, okay, so today, can I call another lawyer? Because like when I first moved back, I still had to figure out like, who's my lawyer gonna be? Like there were so many unanswered questions and so many next steps I had to take. I was overwhelmed. It was like, where do I start? So it was just like, okay, well, today I can call one more lawyer and I can get one step closer to finding the right one. What is the next thing I need to do? And surrendering to the fact that this whole entire like rebuilding process and starting over was not going to be solved in one day, and just having that patience and grace with myself that like I'm doing the best I can. You know, I'm accepting help. I'm finding the joy in every single day. I'm being a great mom through all of this, and like just celebrating all of the things that were going right instead of focusing on everything that felt wrong or focusing on like the loss. At the same time, while also acknowledging the emotions as they came through me. Like, I mean, I would be at a store randomly, like picking out avocados or something, and all of a sudden I would have a memory of like missing my cat, and the like grief would come up of like, oh my God, I'm never gonna see him again. And I would just like start crying like while I'm holding avocados in my hand, you know? And it was like just allowing myself to experience that and be like, okay, well, this is part of it. Today I'm kind of having an embarrassing moment here, crying, holding avocados, and if anybody's gonna approach me about it, like, I'll just tell them what's happening. Like, I just didn't care. I was just like, I just let go of like having to be anything other than what I was or what I was experiencing at the time. And that was really, really helpful. I think the final thing I'll say about like, if you are at the beginning of losing everything and starting completely over, I just want to say, even if you can't even envision what your new life is going to look like, that's okay. That's totally normal. I felt that way too. Just take it one step at a time. You will get there and you will start to rebuild. And those new dreams will come. It just may take time. Like right now, I'm living a lifestyle that I am so grateful for. I'm actually amazed at what I've been able to rebuild and accomplish in the past 3.5, 4 years. Sometimes I still feel like I'm still rebuilding. Like I don't feel done yet, but like, do we ever really feel done? And you know, it's kind of like that cliche saying, like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, it will. It really will. And actually, in hindsight now, I can say going through that most difficult chapter of my life was like the thing that I am so grateful for, because I found my inner hero. I found a strength within me that I didn't know I had. I feel like life can throw anything at me now and I will be okay, because I developed so many skills having to go through this. It's going to be a roller coaster. Just ride it, but just know that like you don't have to spiral into this state of like depression. You can choose to still find the joy and inner peace and gratitude in every single day. You just have to look for it. So I hope this was helpful for you. And even if you don't believe in yourself today to be able to make it through this, I want to just tell you that I believe in your ability to make it through this, and everything will be okay. What is your next right step? And remind yourself, today is a day too.